Good morning, my people. Good morning, my people. Thank you very much for tuning in. This is the Sleeper Show, episode number 7. Thank you all for hanging out. We got a good show lined up, obviously, and I know you guys know this. Yesterday, this was very similar as well. It's impossible not to be talking a lot of Padres Dodgers right now. So get ready for another show that's focused on baseball. Thank you so much for everybody hanging out. Appreciate Doug McCain yesterday who hopped on the show from Dodgers Nation. That was a great show. Yes, it was a lot of sports, a lot of content, but it was fun to preview Game 3. Today's not going to be that much different, to be honest with you. We got a lot to get into. The one thing I'm going to try to do today, I just want to get to more of your guys' comments. I don't think I did a good enough job of doing that. So thank you for being here. Thank you for hanging out. If you haven't yet to subscribe to the channel, what the hell are you doing? Subscribe to the damn channel, okay? You wake up in the morning, you grab your cup of joe, get a cup of coffee. What I tell you guys yesterday, I was 3 shots in. I'm 2.5 shots in right now. All right, working on my 3rd right now. Grab your cup of joe, hang out with me for about an hour or so, and I will try as best as I can to put together a good show for you, entertaining, hopefully educational, hopefully get you riled up one way or the other, and we'll make it happen. All right, so Padres take a 2-1 series lead last night. This shit is stressful. I don't care who the hell you are rooting for. This shit is very stressful. If you're a fan of the San Diego Padres, you're on pins and needles basically from the 3rd inning on. If you're a fan of the Los Angeles Dodgers, you're waiting for something to happen with one of these stars that you have to tie the game at 6 apiece or maybe take the lead or whatever the case is. Really, really interesting game yesterday. I thought really, really well played. I definitely thought either team obviously had an opportunity to win that game. Not the way I thought that game was going to be played out by any stretch of the imagination with Michael King on the mound versus Walker Buehler. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it came down to 2 bullpens who basically shut the game down from the end of the 3rd inning on. I know Michael King was in there for a little bit longer. Walker Buehler was in there for a little bit longer. But after that 3rd inning, there was no scoring at all. Padres win the game 6-5. Give everyone an idea what we're going to do on today's show. So I kind of want to talk specifically about that 2nd inning. You know, I titled it here a disastrous 2nd inning for the Dodgers because that's exactly what it was. Walker Buehler didn't pitch. He didn't pitch bad yesterday. He really didn't. But mistakes, maybe some questionable calls, decisions made. Miguel Rojas with probably the biggest decision of the game by not trying to get a shutout and trying to churn 2. So we'll spend some time on the 2nd inning. What happened to the Dodgers bats? And I'm going to knock on wood here because the last thing I'd like to see is those bats wake up in game 4, but it can easily happen. Listen, at any point, the Dodgers can put up 7-8 runs. That's just how good of an offense that they have. But what they did after that 3rd inning, I got one of the OGs coming on later today, John Kentera. And if you guys remember, John Kentera has been in the sports talk game for about 30 years, 30 plus years. And he's doing phenomenal things. He's doing a podcast. I've been helping him kind of set that up here over the last few months. But John Kentera is literally as knowledgeable as it gets when it comes to the world of baseball. He's going to come on at 8:15. I'd really like you guys to hang out for that. He's also, by the way, watches a lot of Dodger games as well. Has a really close relationship with Dave Roberts from knowing him when Dave Roberts was down here in San Diego. So he's going to get a chance to join. And then last thing I'm going to ask either Dodger or Padre fans on this pod, is this going back to LA or are the San Diego Padres ending this thing tonight? I always thought this thing was going to go 5 games. That's just kind of what I believed. How that got there and what the scenario looked like, I have no idea. But certainly this is it's been a close series. I mean, listen, game 1 was 7-5, and the Padres were threatening in the 8th and the 9th and had chances to tie up that game. Game 2 was a blowout. Okay, that happens every once in a while. Obviously, Padres win that game 10-2. Yesterday was a complete nail biter. I mean, there was no time, if you were a fan of either one of those teams, that you could sit back and you could relax. Maybe if you're the Padres, you relax for a second at 6-1, but 10 minutes later, the game was 6-5. All right, let's just kind of start with this. I think the game yesterday was decided in the second inning. It was. I want to walk you guys through, and then I also want to play something from the Fox crew yesterday talking about Manny Machado, and if he did anything wrong in what he was doing, and if the umpire should have done something as far as interference or obstruction. But let me walk through you guys that second inning real quick, because the second inning was a game. First off, the inning started with a pitch clock violation. So Walker Buehler's on the mound against Manny Machado. You want to have every ball that you can. And because he took too long, pitch com, whatever it is, he didn't step off the mound, and he got the pitch clock violation. Right out the gate, you're 1-0 against Manny Machado. And then he ran the count, I think, to 2-1, and Manny gets a single. Okay, world's not going to end. Jackson Merrill comes up after that. And this, I think, was really one of the most important plays of the game. And I'm going to replay it for you guys that, I know a lot of people already saw it, but let's kind of look at it, and then we could talk about it as well. Let me make sure that I'm picking the right one here. Here's Jackson Merrill at the plate. The scenario that's in play is the Padres only have Manny Machado up, and take a look at what happens from here.
Right here. Look at the play. Couple of steps outside, and then he ran in. Boom. Smart play by Manny right there.
Poppy, let me see that ball. Let me.
There you go.
So, Kevin, as a catcher, when you show up to spring training, the first thing you get taught as a catcher is when there's a bunt and that runner gets in your way, you're taught hit him right between the numbers, and that's an automatic out. The first baseman is the same rule. If that guy, Machado, comes way in the lane, 3 or 4 feet into the grass, if you hit him between the numbers, he's supposed to be out. Now, the judgment call, the umpires did not call it. They did not review it, which was confusing to all of us.
You can't review that.
You can't review it.
You cannot review interference or obstruction.
That's
so
why
once it wasn't called, they couldn't do it. But your point is, they add umpires for the series. No one called it. No objection. It was very interesting.
And no meetings or anything. And the point is, Machado is, by the way, if he does nothing, he's out. If he tries it, it's a 50-50 shot. And in this case, he won out.
Good job by Manny. It's just funny. Manny's just always in the middle of everything, right?
You know what he's doing out there, man.
All right, so that's the crew from Fox breaking it down yesterday. Here's why I wanted to play that, because I think it is worth a conversation, and I think it had a big kind of influence on how the game eventually ended up going. Machado does what he does. Listen, the fact that it was Manny Machado, it's kind of like, well, of course it's Manny Machado. Me watching the play live, I thought, and I think you saw Rojas point like, hey, this guy he's basically on the grass. I thought, I'm like, oh, well, that's not good. Thinking of it from a Padre perspective, I'm like, they're going to probably call Machado out. And then, the more that they talked about it, basically the specific ruling was, no, it's actually just a heads-up play by Manny Machado. And it's Freddie Freeman trying to make a throw on his knees, trying to make something happen in that position to go try to get the out. But look what happens after that. So Manny gets in the way, no interference. Xander Bogaerts hits a ground ball. He's the next batter. Miguel Rojas has a decision to make. Am I going to just get the for sure out at second, or am I going to try to turn a double play here? Tries to turn a double play. Rojas ends up getting to second base. Jackson Merrill is safe. Throws the ball to first. Xander Bogaerts is safe. The Padres, kind of out of nowhere here, have the bases loaded in the second inning. Nothing really hit that hard. Nothing that really Walker Buehler has done wrong, and they're in business. And, after that, David Peralta with a huge double down the line. Kyle Higashioka gets a sacrifice fly, and then the Tatis 2-run homer sets the tone, and next thing you know, the place is rocking, and the Padres are up 6-1. It all happened like that. But it was just I mean, when you think of playoff baseball, and this is kind of what surprises me with the Dodgers right now. What surprises me with the Dodgers, it's like the little things I don't even feel like they're getting right. And if you're a team that is as I dot my I's and I cross my T's, this does not look like a team that's got their ducks in order, that are confident about what they're doing, that know when the dust settles, they're going to find a way to win the game. I mean, Michael King basically threw one bad pitch yesterday. Obviously threw it to Teoscar Hernandez. I think it was a hanging slider. Teoscar hits it, however, 400 plus feet, whatever it was. But without Teoscar's grand slam, this really isn't a game. And you're pointing the finger, and you continue to point the finger at some of these Dodger players, at some of the decisions these players are making. It's just odd to watch how a team is so good during the regular season, best record in Major League Baseball. And I'm not just talking about this year. Obviously, I'm talking about this is years and years that the Dodgers have been doing this. But when it comes to the playoffs and the postseason, they're not the same team. I don't want to make too big of a deal of this because I think it's left for interpretation. But we were talking about the energy of the team, and yesterday Doug and I were talking about this, that it doesn't feel like it feels like they're a Fortune 500 company, and there's just not as much emotion that comes into play, at least that they show from a Dodger perspective. I think that does translate on the field. I think there are times that you're saying, I don't know who's going to be the spark guy. I thought when Teoscar Hernandez hit that grand slam, I'm like, Padres are losing this game. I really did. 6-5. They put themselves in a position now where it's a one-run game, and it's only the third inning. Oh, well, of course the Dodgers. I thought yesterday was a must-win for the Padres because Michael King was on the mound versus Walker Buehler. And when it got to 6-5 and already Michael King is 5 earned runs, it's like, yeah, this is not going to bode well. And they're going to probably have to go to their bullpen early. And if the Dodgers win this game, Dodgers are probably going to win the series. I saw some of the stats they're putting up. The team that wins game 3 wins 75, 72%, whatever it is. But it's just mind-boggling how the Dodgers shrink in these games. Now, I don't think the series is over. I saw some quotes from Shohei Ohtani basically saying all we got to do is win 2 in a row. He is right. All they have to do is win 2 in a row. But I think even more important than winning 2 in a row, all the Dodgers really have to do is just win 1 game and send it back to LA. Now, if it gets to a game 5, I think it's a 50-50. Anybody can win that game. I don't think there's a lock that it's the Dodgers. Maybe give them a little bit of an advantage because they're at home. But just incredible the way that game played out. And I put this up here, and I'll talk to John Kentera about it once he gets here. But I put this up here. Do you know the Dodgers went 1 for 21 since the third inning and did not have one player in scoring position after Teoscar Hernandez grand slam? Not one player for the Dodgers got to second. The only hit that they got, if you guys remember, here's Freddie Freeman completely hopping around and barely able, it seems like, to walk, finds a way to get to or get a single. He's the only guy that got a single that entire time. And Chris Taylor steps in. He can't get to second. That's when Suarez is there. And that was it. That was it for the Dodgers. They literally, there was nothing that the Dodgers did past that third inning after Teoscar Hernandez. And you're talking about a lineup with Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Teoscar Hernandez, Max Muncy, Will Smith. I mean, go down the line of all these unbelievable players in big situations. They had, when Tanner Scott came into the 8th inning, here was the 3 that they had. They had, I'm just thinking here off the top of my head, Shohei strikes out. Mookie gets out. That might have been the good play Xander Bogaerts had. I can't remember if that was a play or it wasn't. And then Freddie ends up with a single, like I mentioned. And then, obviously Suarez comes in for the Padres. But it's just crazy to me that the Dodgers, a team like this, the bigger the moment gets, how they have that much trouble finding ways to close out a game or getting over the hump or whatever the case is. And they took game 1. So it's not like, taking game 1, I think, obviously should take a little bit of pressure off the Dodgers, and it clearly didn't. Okay. as promised, I want to welcome in one of truly one of the OGs here when it comes to sports talk radio, somebody that's been in the business for a very, very long time, a personal friend of mine I used to work with over at the Mighty 1090 down in San Diego when he was doing a lot of the post-game shows and everything else, Mr. John Kentera himself. What's going on, Coach?
Doing well, Alan. Thanks for having me. And, man, I'll tell you what, your setup's looking awful good to me.
Thank you, Coach. Thank you. You got I have a bad setup right there as well. By the way, I'm going to plug this here for John. Coach is doing a podcast as well. He's exclusively on YouTube right now. The channel's called San Diego Sports Talk, and it's the John Kentera Show. Did a post-game show yesterday. He'll be doing a post-game show tonight. Predominantly, this is geared towards Padre fans. But, Coach, I've been on your post-game show before. You got a lot of Dodger fans on there as well. So just a heads up there that Coach is doing his thing. And I'm sure there's a lot of people in the chat right now that are saying, hey, great to see one of the pioneers in sports talk radio in SoCal.
Well, thanks, Alan. And again, we talk a lot about the Padres, but, once the Padres season's over, we'll talk a lot about San Diego State and, what's going on down here sports-wise. But you know what? I got to infringe on your Lakers a little bit. Every once in a while, I got to talk about the Lakers. I've been a Laker fan since I was 7 years old, and really excited for the upcoming season.
Well, here's what's kind of funny. I think, and we'll have plenty of Laker conversations. I know a lot of people that are on this channel. A lot of them have followed me for Lakers basketball. But yesterday, Coach, I had one of Doug McCain, who covers the Dodgers on Dodgers Nation, kind of giving the Dodger perspective. And I want to do kind of a hybrid with you. And you and I have had plenty of baseball conversations. But let me first just start out with the Dodgers. Here's a team that we know the storylines. We know that they have had their troubles in the postseason. They've had their troubles in the playoffs. We understand however you want to look at the Dodgers and however you want to look at their success as the Guggenheim Group took over. The reality is they have not cashed in as many times as I think a lot of people think they would. Before I just get into yesterday's game in the series 2-1, why do you think the Dodgers have had so much postseason trouble? And I hear some people say, well, it's just baseball. Can you give me an explanation beyond it's just baseball?
Well, I've always said, and having coached and been around baseball, really my entire life, it's not who you play, it's when you play them. And, just using this year for an example, and I'm not going to sit here and give the Dodgers excuses. They certainly still have a lot of very talented guys, but I thought even going back to last year, Alan, what Dave Roberts and the ball club was able to get done last year, I thought was amazing from the simple standpoint. Each of the last 2 years, they've had a hard time keeping their starting pitchers healthy. And eventually that's going to catch up with you. It caught up with them last year, and it's definitely caught up with them this year. I mean, tonight, here you are in an elimination game tonight, and they're going to have to go bullpen. The Los Angeles Dodgers, they're going to have to go a bullpen game tonight. Well, the reason they're having to do that is over the course of the year, they've lost 12 starting pitchers. They've used 40 pitchers on this roster this year. To win 98 games, I know Dodger fans are very disappointed. Everybody figured, well, the Dodgers will go out there and they'll win as many games as they want to win this year. Well, you know what? It became a real struggle. But you got to give, and I know Dave Roberts takes a lot of heat, and I think Mark Pryor's taking a lot of heat, the pitching coach right now. But you know what? They were able to navigate to win another division title. They're still in this series, even though I think the Padres take in a considerable amount of momentum. I just don't think the Dodgers have performed. And really, and Clayton Kershaw is a guy that's been one of my favorite guys to ever watch pitch. I mean, watch that delivery, that 12-6 curveball. But he's only had a couple of decent postseasons for as good as he is during the regular season. And that's a big reason why the Dodgers have struggled in the postseason over the last decade, is because their number one guy, Kershaw, didn't perform at the typical level that you would expect. And he's also been hurt the last few years. I don't know if we're going to ever see Clayton Kershaw. I don't know if he's going to be able to come back next year. But, right now, the Dodgers are in big-time trouble tonight, because when you're going bullpen game, Alan, you're asking maybe 5, 6, maybe even 7 guys to have a good night. Their chances are not everybody's going to have a good night when you're throwing that many guys out there on the mound.
I'm gonna. I don't think you can fast forward, but I'm gonna just kind of try to set this up for you. I know you've got a personal relationship with Dave Roberts. Have known him for a long time. Obviously, he was in San Diego, was a San Diego Padre. Um, I was in LA for a number of years. Every year that the Dodgers were eliminated from the postseason, since he's been there, there's been a lot of fingers pointed at him. I said this yesterday, and I do believe it, and I'm curious to get your opinion on it. If the Dodgers flame out again in the postseason, it's not to say that it's Dave Roberts' fault that Tyler Glasnow is not available, or Gavin Stone's not available, or Dustin May or Tony Gonsolin, or go down the list of just some of these pitchers that are dealing with the injuries that they have and they've had in the past, but they still have a really good lineup. Trying to explain being out 3 years in a row the way they have. Can you make an argument for me? And I think it's going to go against the grain of what a lot of Dodger fans would say or what a lot of Dodger fans would want. Make the argument that this is not on Dave Roberts, and it would be absurd for the Dodgers to fire Dave Roberts if they can't get past the Padres.
Well, I don't know if anything's absurd. I've seen everything in the world of sports, so nothing would surprise me. But the other thing that I would throw in there, you're talking about, Glass now being hurt and Kershaw's obviously out. But is Yamamoto really at 100%? Is he really the Yamamoto that the Dodgers paid for coming over from Japan? I would say not. And Walker Buehler, hey, give the guy a lot of credit. I mean, he hung in there last night and got through 5 innings, but he gave up 6 runs. He's a shell of himself right now. So, I mean, who are you going to start tonight? Landon Knack and bullpen by committee? I mean, this is the Los Angeles Dodgers. This should not happen, but it has happened. It's not Dave Roberts' fault. Dave Roberts, not the pitching coach. Dave Roberts, I'm not saying Mark Pryor is the fault there. This is an organizational problem the Dodgers have to figure out what's going on. Dave Roberts, I'm convinced, Alan, could go 162-0. He could win the World Series, and people would still be upset with Dave Roberts because they didn't win with style points. Now, as far as this ball club right now, Freddie Freeman's not 100%. Miguel Rojas certainly isn't 100%. I don't know if he can play tonight. You've got Will Smith, who I think's really developed into being a great catcher, but he hasn't been the same player since the All-Star break. You remember he was delivering. He was hitting 4th in the lineup. Now he's hitting down in the order at number 6. I mean, he's a big disappointment to me because he's a better offensive player than he has shown the last 2.5 months. And they got to get some contributions out of him. Everybody else kind of doing their thing. Mookie kind of got off the schneid last night. Tonight's game is going to be desperation. You can see in the mannerisms of the Dodger players right now, they're feeling the heat. They're feeling the heat. And the Padres, on the other hand, Tatis and Machado and Profar, those 3 in particular, they can be very cocky. They can be very arrogant in their own way, but they're playing loose, and they feel this is their series to lose.
And listen, you can be cocky and arrogant if you're winning. And if it's what I mean by that is, if you're cocky and you're arrogant, like one of my concerns going into Game 3 was Padres put the whooping on the Dodgers. They won 10-2 at Dodger Stadium. Obviously, all the antics that was going on, and the storylines leading up to the game. I'm like, all right, this is fine, but if you lose Game 3, then you just look stupid. And fortunately, if you're a Padre fan, they came through yesterday and they ended up holding on to that game 6-5. But there is if you look at the 2 dugouts and go look at, I don't know if this is the best example, but Teoscar Hernandez hits a grand slam. And don't get me wrong. Yes, Dodger players were excited, but there still was it felt like if the Padres had hit a grand slam in that predicament, in that situation, just the environment, I feel like in the dugout is so much different than the Dodgers. And that's okay. I mean, however you win, it doesn't matter. If the Dodgers win that game 7-6, nobody cares about that. I think the question just becomes what you just said about the pressure that's on the Dodgers. they look tight. They seem tight. They feel like the pressure is on them. And, I think a lot of people thought that was going to change. At least I did after game one. Hey, Shohei Ohtani, he can change whatever concern that they have. Well, Shohei, since game one, it's not like he has, gone off and he's hit a couple more home runs. Really, the best player in this series has been Tatis, and it hasn't even been close. And Tatis is, obviously getting his love, but there seems to be one dugout is completely loose, playing carefree, and the other one is saying, "Is this happening again?" And you could see it on their faces.
Well, there's no question about that. And, I think, you point out, the Dodgers, I mean, they'll throw the sunflower seeds on their guys when they hit a home run and they'll shake hands. But, the Padres, when they hit a home run or do something big, I mean, you got 2 or 3 guys out in front of the dugout. They got every known handshake in the book, and they're jumping around and looking at the sky. And, it's almost like these are a bunch of kids playing winter ball in the Dominican or Venezuela, where when people show more exuberance. And I know a lot of people, and even myself at times, I think they maybe go overboard in that. But you know what? It's their team. They can run their team however the hell they want to run their team. And whatever Mike Shildt is selling in that Padre clubhouse, the Padres players are definitely buying in right now, and they're getting good pitching performance. I mean, Michael King didn't have a great night last night. It'll be very interesting, Alan, tonight's game, because Dylan Cease is going to get the start on a day's short rest, and he did not pitch well in game one. He matched up against Yamamoto in game one. He went 3 1/3 innings. It took him 83 pitches to get 10 outs. And I'll be honest with you, the Dodgers, I'm sure they're gonna work Cease and try to get him out of that ball game early and try to get to the underbelly of the Padre bullpen tonight. This is going to be a very interesting chess match tonight because, Alan, if you're Mike Shildt, I think both managers tonight are going to have to manage this game like it's the 7th game of the World Series. Dodgers have to find a way to get this series back to LA. And on the other hand, Mike Shildt, with an off day tomorrow, he got to do everything possible not to let his ball club have to go back up the freeway.
Yeah, and you tell me, I'll ask this more of a baseball question. Who does this benefit? Dylan Cease this is going to be his 3rd straight start against the Dodgers. So if you remember, they had that series right before the regular season ended. September 25th, he was at Dodger Stadium, pitched 5 innings, 3 earned runs, 5 hits. Also had 3 walks, just wasn't clean. The game a couple nights ago in LA on Saturday night, 3 1/3 innings, 5 earned runs, couple walks as well. Obviously, like you said, that did not go well. The fact that he's seeing them for the 3rd time, is that benefit the hitters that much more, or is this an opportunity for Dylan Cease to make his adjustments? It won't be at Dodger Stadium. That's going to be the only difference. The last 2 starts, both are at Dodger Stadium. Now he's got obviously the Padres crowd behind him.
Yeah, that's a great question, Alan. I think the more you see a pitcher, the more you get comfortable as a hitter because you're seeing, the break on his slider, his changeup. You know what his fastball does a little bit. I think Dylan Cease has got as good a stuff as just about anybody in the game of baseball. I think he's his own worst enemy. Watching him pitch this year, and I watched him a little bit over the time he was in the American League with the White Sox, but, I think he's his own worst enemy because when you start getting to him, I think he tries to do too much, and then his ball flattens out, and his breaking ball kind of tends to stay up a little bit, and then he'll throw harder. Then his command goes away. I think the Dodgers probably feel fairly comfortable against him. But if he's got his really good stuff, which he hasn't really had the last couple of times he's gone against the Dodgers, and again, you bring up the point they're going to be playing at Petco Park, you'll probably feel a little bit more comfortable pitching in front of that maniac crowd that shows up every night. I do think the Dodgers probably have the advantage, but on the other hand, I think the Padres may have the advantage. Just they're going to see a lot of different pitchers tonight. They've seen pretty much all those pitchers, and you're asking 6 or 7 guys to be on tonight. Going to be tough.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, right? Because I think it's the best way to put it. If you got a bullpen game, yes, Cease is going on short rest, but does this not just kind of? I think this is a perfect example. When I saw yesterday that Shildt is going with Cease, is this not a perfect example of how Schilt has managed all year long? I'm just trying to win the next game. I don't care what the storyline is past that. By the way, sometimes it's I'm just trying to get out of this inning. I feel like he doesn't get too cute. I feel like everything is about that exact moment. And I think that obviously that served the Padres well up to this point. We'll see if it continues.
You know, there's an old saying, games in April mean as much as games in September. So why don't you go ahead and win those games in April? I've always heard that concept. You know, we've got to win games in September. Well, you need to win them in April and May too, or those games in September may not mean anything. And that's exactly what happened last year with the Padres when they went down the stretch and they went 16-2 late in the year, and they finished 2 games over 500 and finished in second place. Mike Schilt from day one, when the season started, was managing like, you know, there was no tomorrow. But he also, at certain points in time, and again, the Padres scored a lot of runs, and they won some games where they didn't have to, go to their high leverage relievers. But most of the time, he managed like they were in a playoff game, to where he didn't want to lose contact with the other teams that were, whether they're trying to win the division or the wild card. He managed day to day, and he's done a really, really nice job. And he's really got the guys buying into being more of a team concept than we've seen here in San Diego the last few years. Doing the little things, whether it's, hit the ball to the right side, lay down a sacrifice bunt in a certain situation. And they run the bases pretty well for the most part. Every once in a while, they'll try to be a little bit too aggressive and get thrown out. But you know what? That's okay as long as it's not happening on a regular basis. But this is a good ball club, and you know what? They're playing with the eye of the tiger, and they have been pretty much all year.
Okay, one more baseball question. I'm going to lob a couple Laker questions your way as well.
Okay.
If the Dodgers win tonight, what has to happen? If the Padres win tonight, basically, give me the storyline of how each team wins tonight.
Well, I think your big three in the Dodger lineup have got to show up. I mean, Ohtani has to have a big night. Mookie Betts has got to at least get on base, and you're hoping Freddie Freeman can play. And the other guy, I mentioned him earlier, Will Smith doesn't have a hit in the series. I mean, Will Smith has got to deliver. And, in that first game, if you go back to the first game, the 7, 8, and 9 hitters for the Dodgers that night, they went 5 for 12 and scored a couple of runs. Obviously,
couple on with Ohtani on the plate, right? That's how Ohtani got that 3-run homer. It was those 6 through 9 hitters. Yep.
At the end of the day, you got to get contributions up and down that lineup tonight. Tommy Edman needs to be a catalyst tonight. But I think the big three, they've got to show up in a huge way tonight. And then you're hoping your bullpen game comes through. And Dodgers, Alan, you've heard me say this. I think the Padres have a very, very electric bullpen, but their bullpen can be a little hit and miss because I think they try to do a little bit too much. Where I think the Dodgers, they don't have the electricity coming out of the bullpen like the Padres, but their guys over the course of the year I thought were pretty consistent. I mean, everybody goes through a tough time. Evan Phillips did, Blake Trinan did, Daniel Hudson did. Vesia pretty much was the most consistent guy down there, but that Dodger bullpen's pretty tough.
All right, Padres win this game. What's got to happen?
I think Fernando's got to keep rolling, and I think Manny probably comes up with a couple of big hits. Manny's playing really, really well right now, and he's playing with that proverbial chip on his shoulder.
Yeah, and I'll go back to what you said earlier about Cease as well. Is Cease giving you 5 or 6 innings? Is he able to stretch out the game a little bit? Some of the best arms that the Padres have, they used last night to get through Game 3. So I think that's going to be a big part of it as well. And we'll see what happens there. I'm gonna throw this one in here just because I think this is an interesting one. Dave, big changes made if the Dodgers get eliminated?
I don't think so. I think this group from the front office to Dave Roberts, his coaching staff, I think they work really well together. And they've got to just, they've run up against some bad luck this year. I mean, can you imagine if they had all the guys lined up in that rotation? I mean, that would be flat out scary. But most of those guys are sitting in the dugout with a Dodger jacket on, and they're not going to pitch the remainder of the year. And that's unfortunate. It's unfortunate for the Dodgers but it's also unfortunate for baseball because you want to see teams play at their highest level. It just raises the overall bar of the game. And, every team goes through it. But I don't think so. And the other thing people have to remember about Dave Roberts, and I know he's been with the Dodgers, but, the one year they didn't win the division under him, they won 106 games.
Sure.
And right now he has the highest winning percentage of any major league manager in the history of the game that's managed more than 1,000 games.
Yeah, but here's the problem, Coach, with that. And you're 100% right, and you got to give him a lot of credit for that. I think the issue is, if you ask any Dodger fan out there, forget that winning percentage. Can you just have one more World Series in a 162-game season?
Oh.
And I listen, I think what you said about all the injuries, you're 100% right. And nobody knows why the Dodgers have so many arms that are out, or by the time they get to this time of the season, I mean, imagine if they didn't make the trade for Jack Flaherty. What if he ended up with the Yankees? What the hell would their rotation be? And their rotation is already in question, right? And I'm with you that, can you imagine if these guys were healthy? The problem is, and nobody knows why, they're not. And it seems like, I mean, even Walker Buehler's out there giving everything he's got. He's coming off 2 Tommy Johns. It's just crazy that this one organization, I know there's other teams out there. We just saw that Joe Musgrove, obviously, he's out for probably till 2026 based off of his injury. I know it's happening in Major League Baseball, but it feels like this stuff is happening more to the Dodgers.
Well, it may be. You go back 2 years, Alan, the Dodger Double-A staff, they were the hardest throwing staff in baseball. Not in Double-A, all of baseball. And a bunch of those guys that are still with the Dodgers, they're all hurt.
Wow.
And, they've got to figure that out. And there's a lot of things about pitching. And I know Rick Honeycutt, who was their pitching coach for many, many years, and he comes around. I mean, he's like a pitcher whisperer. I mean, he really understands the game. And Mark Pryor does as well. Mark Pryor is a really smart guy. But I think a lot of these guys, they have a tendency to be max effort guys. Maybe they're trying to throw too many pitches, whether you're throwing a curve slider, a cut fastball. You need 3 good quality pitches. And I think some of these guys try to do a little bit too much. And when you do that, you're overthrowing. And when you overthrow for a period of time, that's when the elbow or the shoulder go. But, getting back to Dave Roberts, everybody always wants Dave to get fired. But nobody ever really comes up with who do you want to bring in that's going to work well with the player. Players love Dave Roberts. They love Dave Roberts. They respect him. They play hard. I think the Dodgers have a really good team. I think they play hard. I think when they get to the postseason, some of their bigger players over the years have not performed up to the level. But Dave Roberts gets that ball club ready to play day in and day out. And my question would be, if he were not the Dodger manager, who are you going to promote that the players are going to respect and the front office can work with? Because I'm going to tell you, if there is a new manager coming in, down the road, whether it's after this year, next year, or 3 years, they've got to be able to work with the front office, because Dave Roberts, day in and day out, sits in meetings with the front office, and they go over the game plan from the hitters to the pitchers to the defense, day in and day out. And a lot of managers, I'm telling you, a lot of managers would not have the patience with the front office the way Dave Roberts has, but they've got a good formula there. They got to be careful not to poison that formula.
I would say this. I would say, by the way, somebody suggested Darvin Ham can come in and manage the Dodgers. No, Coach, but I would say this. I think sometimes I can't give you a justification of why you make a change. But sometimes don't you make a change because you've ran it back so many different times and the end result was the same result? That's the only thing I would say. And I'm not telling you that. I think you're right when you say, well, who the hell is going to come in? Why is somebody else going to be able to change it? Or like you mentioned, so many decisions are made in that front office. And Andrew Friedman, this is not managing today is not the way it was 25 years ago, where right now, everything just seems like a math equation and a formula. But I would just say that if it's happened X amount of times in a row, I don't think the series is over, by the way, so I don't want to make it sound like it is.
Right.
Getting that final win is going to be incredibly difficult for the Padres. All the Dodgers got to do is win one game tonight. You're going back to Dodger Stadium. But I do say that if it's kind of gone the same way X amount of times, don't you make a change for that reason?
Well, I guess you can. I mean, we know that organizations in all sports do that. Doesn't always turn out better. I think you got to gauge that. My big thing, it's like Buddy Black. I'll give you Buddy Black's a great example. He's coming back with Colorado again, okay? And people say, man, they lost 101 games this year. They lost over 100 a year ago. Why are you bringing them back? Well, you watch his ball club play every night. They play their tail off. They don't have a lot of talent. They don't spend a lot of money, but guys go out there and they play hard, and that's what you want. Dodger players, they play hard. They don't nonchalant it. And they're just running up against a very, very hot team. And I go back to my comments earlier. It's not who you play. It's when you play them. And let's face it, the Padres have the last couple of years, they've played the Dodgers extremely tough. They won the series this year 8-5. They're 2-1 now in this series. It's a bad matchup. Every team, I don't care how good you are, there's always one team when you're a great team. And I think the Dodgers are a great team. There's always one team that can be the fly in the ointment. And sometimes it's a team that's, well under 500 for whatever reason. They just play well against you. And the Padres are a very, very talented team. They're playing with the eye of the tiger. And, man, I can't wait till 6:08 tonight, man. This has been a hell of a series at this point. It's going to be very great drama tonight. And both managers, tell you what, both managers tonight, I think have some heat on them. Dave Roberts, obviously, more than Mike Shildt because it's an elimination game for them. But I think Mike Shildt has heat from the simple standpoint. He got to handle Dylan Cease very closely tonight because he don't want to go back to L.A. He may have to empty the tank with that bullpen. So it's going to be one heck of a ball game tonight, Alan.
All right, one final one here, and then I'll get to the Laker question that I had. But Machado yesterday running basically to the grass on that line. When you're watching that live and Freddie Freeman's on the floor and he's on his knees trying to make the throw to second, and it ends up obviously hitting Manny. Did you think that was something that was going to get? Did you think the umps were going to step in at all and say, no, you can't do any of that? Did that come into mind at all or not at all?
Yeah, no. Well, first of all, great play by Machado because that's what we teach, and I say we because when I coached, I always had my guys do that. You want to make that throw very difficult, and being an old first baseman, I know how difficult it is. But Machado should have been called out on that because you can't go on the grass. Okay, you got to go in a line, 3 feet one way or the other. He obviously knew what he was doing, got away with it. That play is not reviewable. What was interesting, and I thought Alex Rodriguez last night brought up a very interesting point. There was that's a blind spot for the umpires. Now think about this. That ball's hit to Freddie Freeman. The first base umpire is watching Freeman field the ball, throw the ball, but then he's got to watch what the runner coming to first base. The second base umpire, he's focused in on, boxing up second base to see what's going to happen.
Yep.
I don't think either one of them got a good view of it because if they would have, they'd have called Machado out. You can't go on the grass, okay? And I was surprised, and again, watching it on TV, you don't see it. Dave Roberts didn't even come out, did he?
No, he didn't come out.
Yeah, see, Dave Roberts, I'll be honest with you.
And there's nothing you can review either.
No, it's nothing. Yeah, it's nothing you can review, but I'll be honest with you. Dave should have come out, and he should have asked for those umpires to at least get together and talk about it. Be honest with you, and I wasn't big on yelling and screaming at umpires unless I knew I was right. I'd have gone out and I'd made a big scene right there. I may even get ejected, whether that gets your ball club fired up or not. But Machado should have been out, but I give Manny a lot of credit. It was a heads-up play, and it paid off for the Padres. And, man, you bang him on that play, who knows how this game ends up. I mean, that was a pivotal play. And if I had one critique against Dave, he got to go out and you got to at least ask the umpires to get together and talk about it, even though it's not a reviewable play. They can still talk about it.
No, listen, I agree with you. That was the game. The game was the second inning. I mean, if Manny's out there, okay, do you really have, what kind of inning do you have? I mean, the next batter that comes out was Xander Bogaerts. Rojas makes a mistake by trying to get a double play, not getting a sure out. Then Peralta hits it down the line. I mean, Padres just took advantage of Walker Buehler wasn't terrible yesterday. I know Walker Buehler's line, I think it said 6 earned runs, but a lot of what happened in the second inning, I did not think was Walker Buehler's fault. So
No. He got, and he had an infield hit. Cronenworth had an infield hit. The one thing I'll say about Walker Buehler, he showed me something last night when Dave Roberts came out in the 5th inning, and everybody in the world thought he was taking Walker Buehler out.
Sure.
Dave, looked at him, talked to him, and showed some confidence in him. And he went out, and he, another guy got on, but he stayed with him, and he got out of the inning. And that's a big, big confidence builder for Walker Buehler. Whether it helps him, later if the Dodgers were to advance or next year, who knows? He may be pitching for somebody else.
Sure.
What Dave Roberts did last night instilled some confidence that was much needed in Walker Buehler. That was a good job by Dave managing in that situation. But, the other thing I was going to say, and I mentioned this on my podcast over the weekend, we were talking about Buehler pitching the ball game in Game 3. He doesn't have hit and miss right now. Okay, he's still trying to find himself.
Sure.
Velocity-wise, command-wise. Last night he went 5 innings, and I know the Padres do a good job of not striking out. Walker Buehler didn't have 1 strikeout last night.
Yeah, that's you're right. To have no Ks, and especially what Walker Buehler used to be. What have you made? I mean, listen, all the hype coming in was on Shohei Ohtani. Ohtani, before we were an hour into Game 1, hits a 3-run homer to tie the game, and then had other contributions. What have you made of his first postseason performance so far?
I think at times, like he does during the regular season, sometimes he tries to do a little bit too much. And by the way, Shohei will be up in about 9 hours and 23 minutes if you're keeping track. Okay.
There's a ticker on Fox. It's there waiting for us.
But he's a must watch. I mean, I don't care if you're watching the Cincinnati Reds play the New York Mets and Ohtani's on. You got to switch over and watch that guy hit, because he does something special. I mean, he's just a superhero. There's no doubt about it. And next year I'm really anxious to see how the Dodgers are going to use him. I guess they're going to use him as a starting pitcher. But I said when he was still with the Angels, and nobody knew where he was going to go. I mean, it was presumed he'd probably sign with the Dodgers. I said, you know what? Don't use him as a starting pitcher. Use him as the closer. That way he can help you 3 times a week or 4 times a week rather than, 1 time every 7 days. And coming off a second surgery, and I don't know, it wasn't a full Tommy John. I don't know. They never really specified what it was. I think I'd use him as a closer.
Yeah. By the way, and this kind of shows you what he's able to do if he's just focusing on one thing, which he had that opportunity this year. It's going to be kind of a completely different Ohtani next year, similar to what you saw when he was with the Angels, but that part will be fascinating. All right, I know you're a big Laker fan. I know you're a big NBA fan. Give me your just kind of initial thoughts here. Lakers will walk into this season. They'll have a brand new head coach in JJ Redick. They'll have the same starting 5 that they were using towards the end of last year when they went 18-6 with Rui and Reeves and D'Angelo Russell, LeBron, and Anthony Davis. Hopefully that depth will be available for the Lakers this upcoming year, just strictly based on some health. But the West is really good. LeBron will be 40 by the time we get to January 1st. Granted, I've been saying that for the past 3-4 years. He'll be 36. He'll be 37. He'll be 38, but he'll be 40. What's your kind of initial thoughts on the Lakers right now?
Kind of a wait and see. I mean, I always go into Laker season very optimistic, and you know what, Alan? Probably overly optimistic. I think the Lakers should win the championship every year.
So does every Laker fan.
Okay, and I get so irritated. My wife says when I watch Laker games, I'm a different person. I take it almost personal. Okay, and I mean, as much as I love my Padres and have covered the Padres, it's a different thought process. I mean, I started watching Lakers when they got beaten the 65-66 NBA championship by Boston. And the reason I became a Laker fan, Alan, I want people to understand that there was a guy that grew up close to my hometown here of Solana Beach. He grew up in Encinitas, a guy named John Fairchild. He was on the 65-66 team. He was the last guy on the bench. Only year he played the NBA, ended up playing in the ABA. But my dad knew his father, and so we became Laker fans. Chick Hearn, how could you not be a Chick Hearn fan? And from that day on, as a 7-year-old boy, I've been a Laker fan, a diehard. A lot of big nights with Magic Johnson, and of course going back to Elgin and Jerry West and Wilt and the whole gang. But this team here, I guess there are more times than not, this team frustrates me more than any group of Laker players. I mean, Anthony Davis, to his credit, had a hell of a year last year, and he stayed really healthy. LeBron had a really nice year, but they need more. Rui Hachimura, I think, can continue to grow, be here, and really be with this ball club and be a big fixture. D'Angelo Russell, I think we've all known that him and Darvin Ham weren't exactly exchanging pleasantries and Christmas cards and all that. I'm really anxious. I guess my biggest question mark is JJ Redick. I mean, I don't know how he's going to fare. I think he's a smart guy, maybe at times a little bit too smart. I was never a big fan of his when he was at Duke. He's one of the most, along with Christian Leitner, probably the two most hated players in the history of Duke basketball nationally. He's pompous, he's arrogant, but he's a smart man. And if he's done a good job, the Lakers have done a good job of putting good quality around him as far as assistant coaches. So, again, I'm going in. I'm kind of like a lot of Dodger fans. I'm hoping the Lakers go 82-0 and win the NBA title.
Well, it's funny when you said you have no idea what to expect from JJ Redick. Nobody does. Nobody does. I don't have a track. I've had some people do some of these shows, and they're like, hey, I think I got a good comp for what JJ Redick can be. He could be like Jason Kidd. I'm like, well, Jason Kidd coached in Milwaukee. He coached in Brooklyn. He was an assistant with the Lakers, and then he got his opportunity in Dallas. That's a 7-8 year window of Jason Kidd kind of just learning the ins and outs of being a head coach in the NBA. It's JJ Redick's first gig. He's never coached in the NBA.
Hey, let me ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think the Lakers moved on from Frank Vogel a little bit too quick?
Yeah. Frank Vogel, this was kind of simple what happened there. They needed a fall guy for what happened with Russell Westbrook. And they did not want to – you're kind of making a decision here. They were trying to trade Russell Westbrook. They knew that was a bad deal. But then they thought, well, why don't we try to get somebody that we think can get along with Russell Westbrook, and maybe we can still kind of make this thing work. They get rid of Frank Vogel. They go get Darvin Ham, and then – not too long after that, they're trading Russell Westbrook, and the Lakers are obviously moving on. It's, in my opinion, it's one of the biggest issues that the Lakers have today. One of the biggest issues that they have is there is no sustainability from a coaching perspective. They recycle through coaches every couple of years. How do you build anything? If we want to make a case against the Dodgers that they've stuck with Dave Roberts too long or this or that, whatever the case is, I'd rather have a team that says, this is our culture and our foundation. We had this person maybe a little too long, than you're hiring somebody every 2 years. And somebody's saying on the chat, that's all on Pelinka. He's right. I mean, at the end of the day, if you keep recycling coaches, you stop looking at, is that the right coach? You start looking at who's hiring and firing all these coaches.
I totally agree. And I think when you've gone through as many coaches as they had in the short time that Rob Pelinka's been there, this next one's on him. It really is. And Jeannie Buss and the Rambuses, I know, have a lot to say about the organization. Hey, you know what? I don't care who does what. Just win basketball games. You're in Los Angeles. You've got one of the greatest franchises in the history of sports, and you got to win. You got to win. And it's going to be interesting. I mean, there's a lot of storylines. JJ Redick, LeBron, Bronny. It's going to be a very interesting Lakers season. But you know what, Alan? I can't wait for opening night.
Well, hopefully you and I can be sitting here and they don't get off to such a poor start like they have in the past. But Coach, I want to thank you, buddy. I appreciate you coming on. I know you and I have had a great relationship for a number of years. You've been in this industry for a really long time. I know a lot of people respect your work, respect your opinion. Padres 2-1 lead over the Dodgers. I appreciate you breaking all that down, and also obviously talking a little Lakers hoops tonight. You can hear. And for some Padre fans that are out there, and like I said, I watch your post game, so I know there's a lot of Dodger fans that chime in as well. Coach does a post game show on YouTube, San Diego Sports Talk, the John Kentera Show. Coach, I greatly appreciate it, buddy.
Well, thanks for having me, and look forward to being back on talking more Lakers basketball with you.
All right, Coach, definitely. We'll do, bud. Have a good rest of your day.
All righty, Alan. Thanks.
All right. That's one of the OGs. John Kentera, good dude, really, really good dude. Honestly, one of my favorite people in the industry. So you guys are knows. I'll tell you guys a quick Kentera story, and if you guys got any questions or anything like that, you can throw them up here as we kind of get ready to wrap up the show here in the next 5 minutes. I worked at the Mighty 1090 down in San Diego. I actually interned with a sports radio station when I was in San Diego 20 years ago, when I was still in college, and then eventually I got into promotions. And then eventually I got on the business side, on the sales side. I used to work John's post-game shows. So Coach would do post-game shows after Padre games. And we do it at the Manchester Grand Hyatt, which is in downtown, kind of close, right there close to the water. And that was my account. So I would be with John Kentera. I would be with Randy Jones, former San Diego Padre. He's a good dude, man. I don't think anybody has a negative thing to say about John Kentera. And when you've been in the industry for as long as he has, 30, 35 years, it's easy to have negative comments. I used to listen to Coach. Coach used to do some stuff post-game after Laker games, and it was just on radio, Extra Sports 690 back in the day. So I got a lot of love for that guy. I really do. He's a good person, and I appreciate, there was a lot of people that had a lot of compliments for Coach. You should. That dude deserves a lot of love, and like I said, he's one of the best in the business for over 30 years plus. All right, let me just throw this question real quick to everybody that's out here. Does this series go back to LA? Do the Dodgers push this series to 5, or is it done tonight? So let me read some of your comments here. I'd be curious to get your opinion on that. Can the Dodgers force a game 5? Do you believe that the Dodgers will force a game 5? Let me tell you this from a Padre fan perspective. I always believe that the Dodgers are dangerous. Always. There's not a moment that the San Diego Padres are playing the Dodgers that I don't believe that the Dodgers can wake up like that. And if they wake up, I don't know how you could potentially keep them down or keep them out of it. But the Dodgers have also proven over the years that they've been in this situation before, elimination games, and they haven't come through. So if you told me tonight that the Padres were able to wrap it up and they win the game 4-2, or they win the game 5-3, or whatever the case is, it's obviously not a shock because of what's happened with the Dodgers' history. But at the same time, if you told me that the Dodgers found a way to grind out a game, or maybe they got the Dylan Cease early, find a way to grind out a game, and this game's going back to Dodger Stadium, no one's going to be surprised or shocked. So I think it's stressful on both sides. But let me read off to some of the people here. And this just kind of gives you an idea how Dodger fans kind of feel about this team or the organization right now. Or there's just a lot of this that has been in your head over the years, and it's difficult to get it out. I asked a question. Are the Dodgers, do they send this back to LA? Let me go through some of these comments, how people feel. Simple Junk 666 says no. Mr. Classic, it's over tonight. I guarantee it. Dodgers have nothing left in the tank as far as confidence. How crazy is that? Here's a team that has so many good players, and yet their confidence is dismantled, or you could see it even with Shohei Ohtani. Listen, there were some at-bats Shohei was taking yesterday, and I think John broke it down perfectly when Kentera basically said that he's trying to do too much. Mookie had a really good day yesterday, but what the Dodgers need is they need multiple players in the top of that order to have a good day together. Not Shohei by himself, not Mookie by himself. Freddie's been pretty consistent, but the guy, what can you ask from him? He's hobbling around, can barely do anything. Let me get to a couple more of these. 72% of teams that are up 2-1 win the series. Doubt that changes for the Dodgers, sadly. It still means 28% find a way to win. Cease gives Dodgers hope. Interesting. Yeah, Cease has not done well against the Dodgers. And what's crazy is his last 2 starts are against the Dodgers. So this is a lineup that gets to see the same player over and over again. And I don't know if it's an advantage for Dylan Cease to say, hey, if I just do this, if I just calm down, if I try to not over pitch, then I'll be okay. But I don't know who that gives an advantage to. I'd imagine that gives the advantage to the Dodgers, that they're seeing the same pitcher again. Baseball is mental. Padres have taken over mentally. Dodgers will win tonight. Got to believe. Well, you got to believe. I don't have to believe. Dodgers don't have anything left, Tank, sadly. All right, let's see. Hart says yes, but the history says no. Dodgers beating themselves. They beat themselves in that second inning. Look defeated after game 2. This series is over tonight, and Pat Hayden will be meeting Roberts at the airport later. There you go. That's a good SC reference right there. All right, everybody. I appreciate you guys hanging out for tonight's show or this morning's show. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed John Kentera coming on as well. I'm back on tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. We'll do this again. I will be intertwining some more Lakers stuff here coming soon. Lakers have another preseason game coming up tomorrow. So tomorrow we'll do a little bit of a hybrid. We'll talk Game 4 reaction, and then we'll start talking some Lakers basketball as well. Thank you for hanging out. Appreciate you guys chilling here for an hour. And I'm going to give you guys I got it up here in the background. I'm going to put a link to, and I know I got the record back there as well, a link to the track of the day. That's going to be there as well. Thank you, guys. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Appreciate it.